Today we'll be going over duplication. So duplication, the basics. What is duplication for SEO? So duplications are when there are duplicate pages from multiple domains or subdomains on a website. And this is bad because duplicate content is frowned upon in SEO. Search engines don't know which page versions should be given ranking consideration. So instead of competing with your traditional competitors, you're actually competing with yourself. So your site can suffer ranking and traffic losses. There are different types of duplication. There's domain duplication, subdomain duplication, category duplication, and parameter duplication are among the few. So domain duplication, this is when there are variations in your domains, such as the secure HTTPS and non-secure HTTP versions of your domain, or if your domain is using the www or not. If these are all up and running, this would be considered domain duplication, and your site would be, competing with itself for rankings. So the preferred domain variation is the secure HTTPS version, and then maintaining consistency upon whether your site includes the www or not for, your secure domain. So making sure that all of your pages, follow these same guidelines to avoid that duplication. So how do you find domain variations? So there's a few different ways. You can perform a deconstructed site search. You can use Screaming Frog, the SEO spider, or you can do a manual check. So manually typing in different variations of your domain to see if they are live. Subdomain duplication is kind of similar. So it is when you have multiple different subdomains on your site, and then therefore have essentially two different versions of your site living under two different subdomains. So the resolution here would be using rel equals alternative tags and rel equals canonical tags, pointing to the proper main and authoritative version of your domain, so that crawlers can understand which pages are the most important and which pages are duplicate. Category duplication is another one. So this is common, especially with e-commerce websites. So this is when there are multiple different versions of a page that are all the same, but will have different categories. So as you can see by this example, so the Motley, looking at this Baxter of California daily face wash, there's a brands 52 category, there's a cleansers, face washes category, there's cleansers. So there are all these different ways that, duplicate content can be created. So making sure that you have the rel equal canonical tag to the authoritative and clean URL will help avoid some of this duplication. Parameter duplication. So a parameter is when a parameterized URL is a URL that has a parameter on it. So typically a question mark and then, whatever following it. Typically the URL looks kind of funky. But so you would want to go within Google Search Console and their parameter handling capabilities, or, create metadata optimizations for specific parameters. What are some of the duplication resolutions? So 301 redirects, so redirecting a site or a page that is duplicate to pointing to the original authoritative version, as well as rel canonical tags. So canonical tag points to the original and most authoritative version of the page, rel alternate tags, and then also using Google Search Console parameters. Some questions you want to ask yourself: do we want the URL to be indexed? So do you want the URL to show up on the Google SERP? Do you want users to be able to use this URL? In the instance of category duplication, oftentimes, those are very helpful for users that are shopping on a site. So, you wouldn't necessarily want to get rid of all of those URLs because they're helpful for the user. And then lastly, is this page important to user experience? Should this page, be up and live? Should you be implementing a 301 redirect? So these are some of the questions to ask yourself when determining what is the best course of action for dealing with duplication. And then finally, we want to touch on pagination. So pagination is a different type of duplication. It is when content is divided across a series of pages. So let's say you have a really long article, that is multiple pages long. That would be considered pagination, and that is also considered duplicate content. There's also an example for e-commerce on like Shopee.com, /category 1, /category, and then parameter page 2, page 3, and so on. Google recommends that when possible, having all of your content on one page is the best possible solution, best for user experience, and avoids any confusion for the Google spider. However, oftentimes it is important to have paginated content, and so when this is done, it's important to make sure that you're taking the proper precautions so that the Google algorithm understands where your content lies within the frame of things and what is the real authoritative page. So if multiple pages are necessary, you would include rel equals next and prev tags, as well as proper canonical tags to ensure that everything is as clear as possible. So hopefully now you have a better understanding of duplication and different types of duplication, as well as pagination, and the sorts of impacts that it can have on your SEO, as well as the best practices for handling these kinds of SEO issues.